In this video, I'll show you what to do if you receive an out-of-bounds error in UCCNC. Hi, this is Greg with StepCraft. One of the most common and frustrating errors you may receive in UCCNC is an out-of-bounds error. This error essentially tells you that wherever you set up your workpiece, somewhere in the program it's telling the machine to go outside of where it can actually reach. To illustrate this very common error, here I'm going to use an 8x8 piece of acrylic. We're going to use our StepCraft D300 as it's our smallest machine to illustrate the out-of-bounds error. On this piece of acrylic, I have our center 0 point, I have a point just to the right of that center, and I have a point to the right and to the back of that center. And what this is going to do, it's going to illustrate what happens when we zero properly or accidentally zero out of bounds. So you can see here, I'm placing this on our D300, which only has about a 9-inch width, and that's going to help us to illustrate why you get a UCCNC out of bounds error. The first thing you always do when you open up UCCNC is to give the machine its home, which is just an initial reference point. The machine will bounce off its limit switches. And then what we're going to do is we're going to zero our workpiece using a 30-degree V-bit here off the dead center of that material. I'm not going to worry too much about Z. I'm only going to do X and Y for now. So you can see we're just about off that center 0 point. I'm going to zero all here, and we're going to load our file, which is just the StepCraft logo, which you can find at www.stepcraft.us/sample file. So you can see our logo file is designed to be this far to the right and this far to the left on the x-axis. So if we didn't zero right in the center of that workpiece, what would happen is the machine would try to go out of bounds or further than it can really reach on each axis and give us an error. So first things first, what I'm going to do is go to our initial 0 point, and we're going to try to run the file. And you can see the file is going to run as normal. Now I'm going to stop it because we don't have the spindle on. I'm going to rewind the file. We're going to go back to our 0. And this time, I'm going to re-zero off that rightmost point that we had initially showed. So I'm going to re-zero all there. So you can see we don't have much room to the right on the x-axis to go. And if you want to switch between your machine coordinates and your relative coordinates, which are your last 0 point, you can use that with this button right here. We're going to stick with our relative coordinates, which is where we last zeroed. And I'm going to try to start the file here, knowing that this is going to give me an error. So this message that the current job workspace is out of the set software limits is very common. And all this is telling us is that right now, somewhere in the G code in the project, the machine is telling the X to go to position 243.79, when the soft limit max on the X is 207. And what that means is that when we're all the way to the right, if we switch back to our machine coordinates, and I'm going to crash my Z here, so I'll get that out of the way. And if we go all the way to the rightmost part of the machine, it will only reach position 207. So if we're trying to start this from here, the machine, the G code is telling it to go to position 243, which is essentially out of bounds. So this message will always tell you which axis and by how far out of bounds it is. And to illustrate that, I'm going to re-zero with our backmost position now. So we'll go to that back corner. Again, I'm not going to worry about Z right now, but just X and Y. So I'm going to re-zero here. And you can see by doing that, it didn't change my coordinates because I'm in machine coordinates right now. But if we switch back to our 0, now the coordinates are where we last zeroed. So if I try to start from here, now I'm going to get an X and a Y limit error. And the Y is just telling us that the soft limit for the Y is 297, and somewhere in the G code it's trying to reach position 318, which is not possible. It's out of bounds on the machine. So that's all this message is really telling you, is that if you are zeroing in the wrong position and the machine's trying to go to a point it can't reach, that it's out of bounds. Now where it gets tricky here is with the Z height. So if we go back to our original and correct zero position, which was in the dead center of the material, and we bring this down and we re-zero all from there, and we try to start the file, those errors are going to go away. The file is going to run just like normal. So I'm going to rewind the file. I'm going to bring it back to our zero. Now this time I'm going to bring Z up into the air. So I'm going to Z0 at machine position -9, which means it's only about 9.9 millimeters below where the max Z can reach. So we'll zero all here. We'll try to start the file. So now here you can see that the Z axis is trying to go out of bounds. So it's trying to reach position 10.4, when in reality the farthest Z can reach is 0, because everything you move from 0 is negative. So 1 millimeter down on Z is -1. So this is trying to say that it's going to go 10 millimeters past where it can physically reach. Now where this gets a little bit tricky is this takes into account your safe Z height, which you can find in your configuration, general settings, and your safe Z height. This is a value that's added to your Z from the last zero position. So when we Z0'd our Z, this is going to tell us that it's going to add 25 millimeters to retract to get to a safe height before it starts any project or starts running. And what that's designed to do is to clear the spindle, to clear the end mill so that you can travel over clamps or any other raised materials that may be on your cutting surface. Now most of the time, if you're using a vacuum table or double-sided tape, you don't have to worry about the safe Z height. So where this gets a little bit tricky is that if you're running out of Z height, if this message is telling you that you're running out of Z height, but you physically can tell you have enough Z height, it's most likely because the safe Z height is being added to that. So you can see there's 25 millimeters here that it's adding to my height to raise. So if we bring this down to 5 millimeters, and you always have to hit enter if you change anything in UCCNC, and then apply and save. Now it's only going to try to raise up 5 millimeters from where it was the 0 point. This is going to give you at least 20 millimeters more to work with when you're zeroing your Z. The only thing you have to be careful of here is that it's not going to raise very high. So if you do have any clamps or anything that you need to avoid, be careful, because you probably will not have enough clearance to avoid that. So now if we go back to our project and we're to try to run it from here, any errors that you may be having with the Z height should be lessened now that you lowered that safe Z. Now there is another spot where the safe Z height is taken into account, and that's in your CAD/CAM design program. In Vectric, it's in the material setup, and you have a Z height that it will automatically raise to a home position and a clearance position. Those are set to default to about 0.8 inches. So if you are having trouble with the safe Z in UCCNC and it doesn't seem to be affecting anything, check your setup in your CAD/CAM program. In this case would be Vectric, and we would lower that safe Z in there as well. So with all this information in mind, if you ever get the error message in UCCNC that says the software is out of limits, you should be able to tell exactly which axis and by exactly how far it's going out of bounds. Hopefully, now you can see that the out of bounds error is not as daunting as it seems. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact us at 203-556-1856 or email us at support@stepcraft.us.